Live, 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 live. We are live, guys, gals. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Happy Monday. Dr. Fox is on. He's my SOS conference business partner.
Good morning, Dan.
Top of the morning to you.
Top
Thank
of
you
the
for
morning.
jumping on. I got it like my LinkedIn feed is full of DIA, so I'm having maybe some FOMO. Not really, but maybe a little. And I was like, you know what? Let's just talk SOS conference.
Let's
Um,
do it.
Someone even asked me, "Are you going to be at DIA?" I replied, "No. From this time forward, I only go to my own conference." And I put the SOS conf. So that's it. We
I
believe
mean,
in that.
how many conferences are there, Dan? Every time I looked at LinkedIn, someone's going to a conference. But
If
then,
I were a tech vendor, I'd go to all of them though, or I'd have someone go to
my
all of them.
gosh. And I'm sitting here, how in the world could you afford to go to all of that?
Have you been to DIA or Bio
I,
before?
I've never been to DIA and I talked with Michelle Shogren about that. It's how in the world do you know what conferences to go to?
Okay, so those are the big ones, right?
Yeah,
DIA and
the
Bio,
big one.
like those
Yeah.
are the biggest ones. I've gone to both as a site.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, sites are bottom of the totem pole at those things.
Yeah, I figured.
Bottom, like there's sites that most sites don't even go, but like I always walk the booths
Mm-hmm.
and I see the sites there, and they're like, yeah, no one's visiting us. If it wasn't for my guru status of like YouTuber,
Mm-hmm.
people wouldn't stop by ours either.
Yeah.
So we're wanting to make something for the sites. Now, if I were a tech vendor, you gotta go to those things.
Yeah, because
And
if you don't go, then you're not in the industry, right? That's kind of like one of those peer pressures.
you're not meeting the guys and gals in charge of paying for your stuff.
Yeah,
And like all you need is a tech vendor's one big sponsor to pay for your thing and force feed it to the sites for their
and
next
you're in.
studies.
Yep,
And you're in, and you
got
could
it.
get your exit and whatever else you need to do. They can facilitate the M&As. Remember pre-COVID, there was like 2019. I remember reading this Center Watch, not Center Watch, Fierce Pharma, or one of those things, one of the industry publications. It said by 2025, which back then seemed so long ago.
Mm-hmm. It's soon.
It said
18 months, man.
the majority of R&D spending will be on technology platforms,
Yep. Wow. I
and we
believe
are
it.
closer to that. We're there already. We didn't need to
Yeah.
wait till 2025.
Yeah, we're there. I think, well, COVID may have spurred that a little bit too,
Yeah, yeah.
but we've got that. So we're talking about SOS here. So we do have our first official sponsor signed on.
Thank you for
And
working hard to
so
make that happen.
we have that. So when you have, and we're going to talk to the sponsor, we're going to have a rollout. We're going to
Can
have a
you
meet.
release who it is, or you're
I think
not yet?
I want to do a dual rollout. So I'm going to figure out how to work with this sponsor and do it correctly. But this sponsor reserved the rights and actually asked for right to refuse in future conferences. That's how confident the sponsor is in SOS.
And they are a site centric sponsor.
They're very site centric, founded by site centric people. And this sponsor is going to be front and center on the conference bags. That's their dibs. Like dibs in the conference bags, we want that. And we want right to refusal. So if we ever have another conference, we want first dibs. That's how confident the
To
sponsor
the
was.
conference bags, which is
The
like
conference bags.
prime real
Yep.
estate
Prime real
for.
estate, like front and center. We are right here standing next to this conference. That's what we're talking about. And we've got other sponsors coming in. Some
That's
sponsors want to
cool.
be Wi-Fi passwords. Some sponsors want to buy food. We've got sponsors coming all over the place for SOS, which
You will
means
not be hungry at this
you will not
conference.
be
Like
hungry.
we paid for
And
the food already, and now other
yeah,
people want to pay for more
yeah,
food.
it's coming. It's coming. So we've got that. We've got some really good ideas. These round tables that we're running every month, they are just generating the agenda. I think by the end of fall, we'll have a really good agenda and some really good speakers to come up and talk about exactly what sites want to talk about. You were talking about the bottom of the totem pole at these other ones.
Bottom of the
We're the
totem pole,
top.
man.
SOS is the top. Everyone is getting under the site right now. The site will be at the top of that totem pole.
Yeah. Now, in fairness to those conferences, they're not really meant for sites.
Mm-hmm.
But shouldn't all conferences in this industry be meant for sites? I mean, at
Yeah,
the end of the day, that's
you
who's
think
seeing
so?
your patients, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I
Those
think
things are more
yeah.
for pharma, share their posters, like share the what new trends are happening. DCT's like the latest thing, right? But a few years ago it was virtual trials. A few years ago, before that, it was, remember preferred sites?
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean, I guess they're still doing that, but there was like an actual thing where it's like, if you're gonna work for IKEA,
You'll be a
you're not
preferred
really gonna
site.
work for anyone
Yeah.
else.
Now they just call them networks.
Yeah,
So that's
it's all
what
the
they are.
same thing.
I was
But
thinking,
why
so
why haven't they found like a one size fits all solution to get accruals
I don't think there is
quick?
one. I mean, and of course, I'm biased to healthcare integration. I think that's going to be your one size fits all, because when you do healthcare integration, you're talking about working with the doctors that patients choose. We're talking about being patient centric all the time. We ought to try focusing on the physicians that the patients choose to visit instead of trying to tear them away.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, that I think
I
that's
didn't
big.
realize.
Tosin said, as a compliance personnel in a phase one site, I'm super happy about this conference. Phase
Looking forward to
one
see you, Toast.
is
Wow.
it's often
Hey,
overlooked. I don't
Toasted.
know if phase one has their own conference. They need to.
I have a lot of sponsors coming to me right now saying, "Hey, do you know any phase one sites?" So, Tosin, if you're interested, maybe give us a call. You run into that? Sponsors come in
I
saying,
get into
"Hey, you know
phase
any
one.
phase
You
ones?"
you know what I've been noticing a lot lately is the phase one slash two.
Mm-hmm.
So the
The
sponsors
pivots.
trying to rush
Yep.
uh, or they got approval, and why not? I mean, if I were a sponsor, I would do it also. Phase one, two. So we want one cohort healthy volunteer. We want the other three cohorts with the indication, and we're gonna
Yep.
do the single ascending dose, multiple ascending, the maximum ascending dose, all that stuff. They're gonna do it in one
Parallel
study.
timelines. Yep.
Yep, yep,
I wonder. So, phase one sites, do you think that they have different needs compared
of
to phase
course.
two and three? And 'cause
Yeah.
I talked to a number of phase one site owners, and they said they're treated pretty well on the budget. Like, they don't mess with them. They get their money
If you
and they
think
get what they
about it,
want.
phase one is so risky for a sponsor. You're only choosing one, maybe two, three
Yeah.
sites at the most.
Yeah. So
These
you
phase
don't.
one, two are
Yeah.
different. They do like 10, 15 sites, but the like just the phase one by itself, it's usually one or two sites. So they're putting all their eggs in one basket. So they're not gonna, well, at least in theory, they wouldn't skimp on the budget and have a site like
Mhm.
not motivated. You want them to just focus on that trial. I've audited phase one studies before as a CRO, and
Yeah, that's got to be really tricky. There's
those
some
time
complexities
points,
there.
man, those time points
Yeah,
are
and you have to do
so important.
PKs and you make sure everything's appropriate. So Dan, I'm in Springfield, Illinois, right? And of course, Springfield, Illinois, it's known for Abraham Lincoln,
Hmm.
uh,
Land of
y-
Lincoln, man.
land of Lincoln, right? So you've got uh, everything here is Abraham Lincoln. And when you come to Springfield, and I hope you do sometime, maybe for a conference in a couple of years,
SOS
who
Part
knows?
3.
Part three, there is an Abraham Lincoln historical museum. The National Museum for Abraham Lincoln is right here in Springfield, Illinois. And one of the things that really resonated with me, and you'll see where I'm getting at here in a minute, but you go through this walkthrough of the Civil War with Abraham Lincoln and all the things that happened. And one of the biggest things that really get me every time I go is they've got original political cartoons of Abraham Lincoln
Mm,
right there. Talk about how evil he is, all these political cartoons.
really?
Yeah, yeah. I can't help but to think that today's political cartoons are memes.
They've got to be,
They've,
man. So,
I mean, the memes are. I think the memes are just another rendition of political cartoons in so many ways. So I wonder if someday we'll have like a clinical research museum and your memes will be in there for people to
wow.
see. What do you think?
I mean, it'd be an honor, like, to stand the test of time. I think. I mean, do you think clinical research sites 100 years from now? This is actually a really good thought experiment
Mhm.
because 100 years ago there were no research sites. And 100 years from now, do you think they're gonna still be around?
See, this goes back to healthcare integration. I think that, well, 100 years from now, if we still have clinical trials, we might all be robots. Who knows? We all have our own
They're
little
doing digital
robo
twin stuff
bodies.
like in
Yeah.
silica, digital twin. once that gets us accepted, maybe 200 years. I don't know. I think that we're just living like us in this industry. It's just a moment in time. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a transitionary period between this and like the genetic revolution and epigenome and all that stuff that's going to come together. I don't know. It's interesting. Like people 3 generations from now, I don't know if there will be an industry like a clinical research industry.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a pharma industry, but it's going to be different. I don't think it's going to be pills and shots anymore.
Yeah. You're gonna be like 3D printing people. Who knows?
3D printing your organ, a new pancreas.
Yep.
Uh,
Just so as long as we try to keep the bodies that we have going the way that they are, and we want to keep them like longevity, there's gonna be some form of clinical research. Even I mean, we get the tech behind us. Even then, if there's going to be like a doctor's office, there's going to be some form of clinical research.
yeah, I
So,
suppose. Tosin says phase 1, they don't mess with you financially,
yep.
fast paced. Yeah, I know some site owners who will own
Hmm.
just phase 1 sites, and I know others that just specialize in monitoring. Carla Veranava, shout out to her. She's coming to
Hmm.
SOS. Her and her
Yep.
husband, the dream team. Are you connected with her,
Oh yeah.
Carla?
Oh
She's
yeah.
awesome.
Carla's an awesome person.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
The
That and
memes,
yeah. I've heard
yeah,
the same thing about phase ones. Phase ones are just insane, and sponsors when they find a good phase one, they don't really want to lose them.
the only phase 1s I've done as a site are the phase 1/2 where I did
Hmm.
schizophrenia, and it's because it's first in human is the first in the therapeutic indication in those cases. So I've done those, and then I've monitored just the straight up healthy volunteers, which are pretty interesting, super fast paced.
Hmm.
Um, the memes. Are we the only ones doing them in this industry? Like me, you, Fox, or me, you,
I
Brad,
don't.
and a few
I
others?
don't think so. Honestly, the very first meme I ever saw of clinical research based was David Volcano's at one of the SCRS
Hmm.
conferences. He was putting them up on his presentation. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. And I looked at the memes, and he had some really good ones. And then I started looking at them, and then I think you got YouTube banned, and then you're like
That's right.
memes. That's what
That's right.
really hit the meme revolution for Dan. And then I started looking at that, and I'm like, and then the more it went through, the more it reminded me of those political cartoons
Hmm.
of Abraham Lincoln. People hated that guy. I mean, they really hated that guy. And part of it said to me is, I'm throwing out all these memes, and I'm sure people hate me right now. They think that I'm negative or whatever. That's what I thought, 100 years from now, they're going to look at those memes and be like, you know what? I think he was onto something.
I think it's only a matter of time before one of our next presidents wins on memes. Um,
That would be so
well,
cool.
if you think of it, like Obama won because he understood Facebook, right? And he understood how to target and
Hmm.
grassroots. Trump came
Oh,
out and
social
he
media, like
Twitter.
Twitter. Yep.
This year it looks like it's gonna be the podcast with RFK Jr. Taking off.
Yep.
I mean, we'll see what happens. So the next one, maybe it's memes if memes are still gaining popularity. I thought
Yeah.
memes would slow down at one point, but they're just increasing in popularity.
Well, the thing is, the more media generated in society, the more content you have for memes. It's just like an unlimited stream of ideas.
Yeah, yeah.
So exponentially, just idea after idea. And generally, if you look at memes, there's always an antagonist or a protagonist,
Hmm.
sad, happy, something. And you just
Something.
you just plug in your antagonist or your protagonist, and then you have a new idea.
That's actually really true.
So,
Or an emotion, right?
mhm,
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
some
there's have to be simple, but like resonate on different levels.
So if you think about it, a lot of the pictures on the memes that we look at, there's so many different memes, but they all resonate around the different emotions and like the way you'd write a book. There's a bad guy and a good guy,
Yeah,
something like that.
it's like script writing.
It is. It's very much creative script writing, and I love the challenge of being able to use maybe only 1 to 5 words just
Mm,
to display what you need to do. So it has to be very creative on how
yeah,
very selective on what you do.
coffee helps me.
Yep.
That's what I was doing yesterday. Me, you, and Brad had a text convo on a Sunday morning.
Oh
Uh,
man.
Well, I was gonna ask you something. Oh, DCT. We
Mm.
haven't talked about DCT guidance. Uh,
It's interesting. So I saw your video on the DCT guidance, and I saw you go through the whole thing. Uh, Joe Dustin, I think he's the one that
Shout out to Joe. He put the slides
he
out
did
there.
that.
I've
But
had others telling me, "Hey, read the actual guidance." But why? I mean, if the slides are summary of it, why would I read the whole thing?
I saw that, and then I just thought, you could just make one slide just for the presentation and just put it on that
Make
slide.
one meme. I have a meme ready to go for it.
But all you had to just make one slide and have it say it depends. And then that's
It
pretty
does
much the entire
depend.
guide. It's like it all depends. It's like, well, you could do this, you could do that. And
It
I mean,
almost feels like it was written to get investors confident enough to invest in some of these startups.
yep. And it was a much needed ammunition to whatever DCT people wanted to use back like 4 years ago before COVID. It's almost like, yeah, hey guys, this is what we wanted to put out before COVID, but now COVID hit, so here you go, and a little
But
late.
what is DC? So I get the convenient. There's elements like I love. People are gonna think, oh, you hate DCT. No,
No.
e-consent. We started using this year. Love it. Okay. Telehealth. The option to give a patient a telehealth visit instead of coming in the office. Amazing. Doesn't You can't always do it, but when you can, amazing. Texting a patient. I mean, we've been texting patients for over a decade.
Yeah, most of your CTMS softwares, they'll be texting it for you anymore. I mean,
But even
that's
on a
not.
one-to-one level, like, hey, patient just text, hey, you know what? I've been nauseous. Is this normal?
Mhm.
I mean, we don't. Do we need as sites like better tools for this? I don't know. We used to use a Google Voice phone number. We still
Mhm.
do, so that the coordinators don't give their actual number to the
Yeah, that's a good
patients.
idea.
But that's like, is that DCT? I mean, that's a tool. There's probably a startup around creating a phone number for sites, but it's already there. Like, what
Mhm.
is DCT? Why do we need so much money pouring into this vertical when a lot of these things the sites can kind of piece together
They're already
themselves?
handling. Yeah, and I really wonder how many people who say that they're DCT have ever read a CTA. So,
They do to figure out how to build sites
well, maybe to
or
build
how to
sites,
build
but
sponsors via sites.
I mean, surely they have a bunch of lawyers looking at this stuff, but it feels like a lot of times this DCT technology, and sorry, this is going to some of the conferences that are going on right now, but it, especially as a site owner, it felt like when I was just flooded with technology coming right and left from every sponsor and vendor known to man, it felt like every vendor just made this assumption that they could kind of do whatever they wanted at the site. A lot of the data grabbers do that. Let us come in, give us the keys to your EMR castle. We'll do whatever we want and we'll give you a peanut for like a patient enrollment. And it sometimes it felt like these tech companies were entitled. They felt entitled to a site's data, to a site's patients even. And I don't know if they ever really understood the gravity of like the site, the PI is solely responsible. It's their choice whether or not to do this.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
even when you go to some of these conferences, these people are just making these assumptions that they can just go into a site and do what they want, or they can go into a site and do what they want because the sponsor said so. And I really
yeah.
wonder if sometimes there's something lost in the translation between the technology that we think is going to be wonderful in DCT and what's actually happening at a
Okay,
site.
what's the most radical part of DCT? Like e-consent, people get, even though majority of sites still have never done an e-signature in their history of existence. So we're not even. That's not even DCT. That's just digital source,
Yeah,
digital
like virtual stuff.
EISF.
Yeah.
Most sites haven't even gotten to that point yet, right? Just signing a 1572 digitally. It's like a huge, huge leap for, I would say,
Mhm.
80% of sites.
Yeah.
But now we're like, this guidance is like forward facing, and it's
Mhm.
like, hey, you can have untrained healthcare providers in another office that are not on the 1572 or on your training log, but they're on like a task log, which no one knows what that is yet, doing certain assessments. Maybe it's like, in the case of a clinician, it's an assessment only an MD or an NP can do. In
Mhm.
the case of a study nurse, it's whatever that nurse can do in her state. Uh, but what happens when one of those people mess up? And then the monitor comes to the site and says, hey, you need to retrain this person. And you're going to say, well, we never trained them to begin with because the guidance said
Didn't
there's
have.
just a task log, right? So how do we retrain them? Oh, so now you want us to put them on the training log? Well, then why didn't we put them on from the beginning? So
So
this just raises a bunch of questions.
okay, so training in what though? That's the question. Is
Well, exactly. So it probably in Alcoa stuff because you're not going to retrain them in how to do their assessment. Like, they're clinicians, they're licensed to do those things. So you're probably training them in the research, the way it comes to like Alcoa, attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate, complete. One
Mhm.
of those things most likely was violated or lacking for the monitor to get upset. If it was GCP that was lacking,
Yeah, that's a problem.
that's all another thing. If you got people rubber stamping, what about like rubber stamping signatures like hospitals do all the time?
Mhm.
Boom, doctor signs. Well, you're not allowed to have that in research. That's which one of it is attributable in Alcoa. What if a medical assistant stamped it in the doctor's name?
So I have to ask you this, and you can answer it yes or no on live or not, but have you ever seen hospitals rubber stamp research?
Not research, but practice. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
The hospitals do it in research all the time.
You see? So what is it gonna
So,
take for like the
I mean,
first one of these things to occur?
but the thing is they've been doing that for 20 years. That's the thing is what you're worried about is what hospitals have just been doing.
Right. And you
So,
you're talking about integrating healthcare, right?
it's
Well,
yeah,
be careful what you ask for
okay,
because
so
you
okay,
integrate.
here's a scenario, and this is why I run Land of Lincoln the way that I run it. Flyover state, Midwest. We're lucky to have a specialist within 3 hours of where we are for some of
Mm,
the things that we need,
mm,
and because of that, patients around here can't do research here because there's no qualified PI within 100 miles,
right,
which means that they're completely denied access.
right, right.
But let's talk about this whole virtual trial stuff for DCT, whatever. If you were to empower the physicians in central Illinois, in the Midwest, with DCT, where they could be linked virtually with a specialist somewhere in Illinois, licensed in Illinois, Chicago, right? Bunch of guys in Chicago, whatever. But those physicians who don't want to be investigators, who don't have the experience and who really don't care, those physicians have an opportunity to give their patients access to trials. Now, I understand logistics, I understand risk, I even understand a lot of the new things about it, but the impact that that could bring to entire rural areas who don't have access to the specialists that could be PIs would be absolutely game changing.
For sure.
And especially now we're going to go pull the autism card, right? So autistic people, they can't go to different doctors. They'd have a meltdown. So you bring those trials to that patient's office, you connect them to a specialist who is a qualified PI who can give virtual oversight.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
think
mean,
telehealth is,
the telehealth part is going to be really big.
but that's already here. It
Yeah.
may not be with HCPs, but it's already here. But
So,
what about document like getting more data out of that HCP, right? Like, okay, well now we need this assessment when and now we want this other one, and this PI, the certified PI in Chicago, is going to oversee it all.
mhm,
But the HCP, I mean, they're seeing like what, 10 patients an hour. So if you
yeah,
tell them to do research, spend 20 minutes on a patient,
you have to pay
they're
them
like,
properly.
wait a
Yep.
minute. And then now you want me to do GCP training, and now you want me to train for this portal, and now you want me to train for that portal, and now my login doesn't work. and
So
this and
then
that.
that's where, like, when you go to this stuff, a lot of these organizations are saying, have the HCP do this, and data are not recorded at the HCP's office. Data are recorded at the site via
That's
a
what they're saying
virtual
now.
platform.
Yeah, that's what they're
So
saying now.
so when you do that, as far as Alcoa goes, you'd still have the authority of Alcoa from the specialists and from the specialized research people, because they're the ones recording and documenting the data
Right. But what
via a
about a blood
stream.
draw, right? Like,
Yeah, so then you've got like the hospitals, right? Any kind of large community clinic, they'll have some kind of a laboratory department, a blood draw lab. What do?
yeah.
You send them over to the lab, you get their blood drawn, and it goes through a process. Now, every site is going to be different. Like, for example, I know clinics, those drive-through oil change places where you like
Yeah.
drive your car and you sit there while they change your oil.
Yeah,
I know
terrible.
clinics. Well, I know clinics, they've converted those to lab draw stations. You drive in, get your lab drawn, you drive out.
Drive-through research.
Drive through labs.
That's
And it's a
cool.
thing. It's really, really
Okay, so
big around
lab's
here.
a perfect example because I'm gonna have to run in like five
Yeah, you
minutes. But
gotta
this was just like this is gonna be a topic at SOS for sure.
we've got to do this. Yeah.
This is like could be the whole thing if we wanted. The lab example is a perfect example. Okay, in your theoretical hypothetical autism, your HCP who's not an autism specialist in a rural area is overseen by let's say a research professional PI in Chicago. The HCP is seeing the patient there. The experienced PI in Chicago telehealth, hey, let's do the assessment with you, like there, but I'll do the interview. All you got to do is like start it at the time we need it. I've done these kind of studies where they're very particular in when they want certain things done. So usually in a case like that for a
Mhm.
for a psychometric rating scale, they want that done first before any blood draws or anything else. But what happens if patient says no? Well, we did the blood draw first because they came in and they were hungry, they were fasting, so we wanted to get that out of the way before we did the assessment. So now you've got like issue, right? And
Mhm.
and and this site that doesn't do research doesn't think it's that important. It's just common sense to feed the patient and then but the protocol's written, no, no, you have to do it this way. We didn't amend it yet. So that's just one example of like just
Mhm.
unlimited number of problems and issues this can trigger, especially when you don't have these HCPs doing any type of training on the study.
Yeah. I Well, so for one thing, there may be a person in Chicago, but there is a community site, the feet on the ground, the research specialist on the ground, right there trying to
I
help
see.
there.
So you'll have a
So
coordinator
you could
at
do the
the
coordinator logistics. You could try to figure out how to coordinate the HCP's office
like a
or,
traveling CRC.
yeah, traveling CRC, something like that. Um, the other, yeah, I just lost it. But oh,
But they're
maybe
not
one
talking.
thing.
They're not talking about this at these conferences. They're talking about just the tech.
Exactly. So maybe that could be the opening for SOS, is maybe part of the agenda is let's really dissect this. Let's analyze a number of site scenarios and figure out how to make this kind of a situation happen.
Let's reverse engineer this thing.
Yeah, let's reverse engineer it. And I mean,
Because that
we
blood draw
know,
thing's a simple thing.
yeah,
There's way more complex issues than that.
yeah. And maybe there's sites that have some solutions to these logistics to help to empower our sites
But
to,
that's the point.
yeah.
That's my point. Sites have been making these solutions with or without, whether you call it DCT or not, for decades.
Hmm.
I've
Yeah.
been going to patients' homes since 2006 to collect investigational product that they didn't return.
See, you just didn't have multi-billion-dollar investment backing.
Yeah, I could have been a startup.
Yeah, you could have been a startup,
I'm a
but
DCT. I'm the original DCT.
yeah, the OG DCT right there.
We used to go to patient
So,
homes. Hey, patient not feeling well. We did a lot of CNS
yep.
studies. Psych. Hey, I'm not feeling well. I can't do my visit. Hey, well, I need to make sure you've been compliant. Can
Mhm.
I come get the meds and bring you the new meds?
Have you ever done a C. diff study?
No. My
Oh,
coordinator has. I haven't.
oh, You want to
stool
talk about
samples and all
timing,
that.
man. It's
Yeah,
not just one stool sample. They need like pre, post, before,
I
after. We
know,
drove
I know, I
hours
know.
with buckets of poo in our car. So, I mean, come on. So, yeah,
Yeah.
sites. That's the thing is sites have the solutions. So if
Sites
we
have been
bring,
doing it, but they're left
yeah,
out of the conversation. They're force fed like these ideas. And it's no
yeah.
wonder they don't want to go to these conferences.
Well, maybe we ought to change that. Let's do
Yeah,
something at SOS to like just here's an open mic. Tell us how you resolved what our industry calls DCT.
that's right. You proved that we've been doing DCT since the day you started.
We did DCT before it was cool, man, and
Yeah,
before there was
well,
a bunch
it
of
was
money behind it.
technically not even allowed, and we did it. We would tell the monitors this stuff. Here's
Mhm.
Brad,
There he is. Hey,
Brad
Hey
Brad.
guys.
Hightower. We're just
Oh,
talking about DCT and how we've been doing it before it was even a thing. A nice
yep.
Yeah,
haircut, by the way,
you
too.
don't
Yeah.
need a. I
Looks
think yeah,
good.
still got a little bit left on top.
Brad's
So
looking sharp.
hanging on to it.
I think you got more on the bottom than the top, Brad.
I'm just compensating for what I'm losing on top.
But
Yeah, no, it's interesting. There's been a lot of conversation with the guidance. I don't know. Do you guys ever listen to the DTRA clubhouses?
No,
mhm.
No, you should check them out.
I used to be on
They talk about it.
Clubhouse.
Yeah.
They talked about it on Friday. I thought it was really interesting. Obviously, they talk about it a lot. I feel like they probably have a big hand in the sort of movement, I guess, if you will.
Mhm.
Oh, the DTRA people, yeah. I mean, that's a business model right there.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
who's really asking like for, you know, DCT? Like, I feel like sites aren't pushing
Brad,
the issue, at
I
least
was
not in
just
that.
telling I was just telling Fox in '06 when I was given my first study as a coordinator, I would go to patient homes to get their IP because they didn't feel like coming in. It was mental health
Right.
studies. Hey, I don't feel like coming in today, Dan. Maybe next week. I just don't feel well. Well, hey, if you want to stay in the study, I need to come give you the new meds and return your old ones. All right, come to my house, get it. All right,
Mhm.
boom. That was DCT.
Yep.
Right.
I mean,
How
that's
many?
what.
Did you have any trials running during COVID, like when COVID hit and we were hot and heavy in COVID?
Yeah,
I mean, sites were doing DCT
they were
before
DCT. Yeah.
the big giant tech people came in. I mean, we were just making it happen. We didn't miss a single patient visit because of the COVID pandemic, unless the patient had COVID.
Well, yeah, I guess a better way to say it is, I guess what sites aren't asking for is to start including a bunch of untrained people
Yeah.
spread out. I don't know, man. I'm really mixed. I have really mixed feelings about the
Oh, I'm
direction
more
of
than
that.
mixed, man. I'm more than mixed. Like, why do that? I guess
Well,
we're pushing geographic barrier. That's one thing, but when it's in your own neighborhood, like, why force something like this?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know. I've worked in a lot of different systems, and even the people who are within a system who are supportive of research they don't care. I mean, that's a bad way to say it, but oftentimes they don't care as much as the research staff, and they aren't held accountable the way research staff is. And I think that
Oh.
becomes, we lost Dan. That it becomes very challenging. I think anyone who's worked in a system knows that. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard enough to get like your own people on board and sort of manage that process. And I don't know. I feel like it's asking for trouble possibly. Again, not
Yeah.
that it's the worst idea and it can't be managed, but it's got to be managed. Like, and who's going to be managing it?
Well, and that's the thing is it's got to be the site. You've got to have structure around it. I'm not saying just cut all the corners and set everyone free, but I think part of that whole untrained person thing was literally what access to the patients is one thing because there's a bunch of patients behind all these untrained people who want nothing to do with research and who don't want to like send patients to another clinic. So if
Yeah, and
you
you're right. You're right. And this is why I'm mixed on it because I don't think the problem is this: like you pretty much, if you're a site, you have to manage these local healthcare providers like a site to a large degree, and you're still asking them to do things that are still a little bit above and beyond or more than they
Mhm.
may do if you're going to use that model. I think it becomes increasingly challenging to do that. And how many sites can one site manage?
Yeah.
It becomes untenable, I think, over time. And at that point, why not just make them a location? Not that we have to go through all the song and dance necessarily. I have mixed feelings on some of that. More questions are still unanswered to me. Again, we talked about simple things like, okay, well, calibration. Again, no one's touched on the stuff we deal with every day. You sit with a CRA once a month, once every 6 weeks, and you get beat up or asked for every tiny little thing. But now it's okay to sort of wave our hands and say, well, we didn't need this stuff in the first place then, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's true. I don't know. I go back and forth from minute to minute on the way to interpret some of this stuff.
I don't think there's going to be an exact fit. This is how you do it, because every site's going to end up doing it differently. And you're right when it comes, because different trials, different requirements, different CRAs even. I think it's going to be logistics that sites have to work out. And that's what we were talking about. This could be a really hot topic at SOS, Brad, is how do you make this fit into your community? Or how do you empower this to work within like your local physician community, things like that? I think the FDA guidance was literally just FDA saying, well, no, here's a loose set of guidances that we have. Figure it out. You're going to have to.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've been working with a lot of sites on this. And number one is you must write a specific and tailored SOP for your site based off of your site's logistics and needs.
Use this guidance to guide you. But why wasn't the guidance written for sites? Like, how do you pay? How do you pay to get guidance, and who's supposed to do the lobbying?
Yeah, well, and that's something I wonder about. And again, when I hear these conversations happening at a high level, it seems like it's lost on people. Like, we're the ones that are going to have to, and again, unless this whole model is to supersede the site and be managed by somebody that's not a site, we're still the ones that are going to have to do it and be responsible for it.
Yep. And clean up the mess.
And be liable for it. And maybe Fox is probably right. Like, if you're a site, you're going to have to determine what your, appetite for risk is and how willing you are to loosely interpret, or how defensible your position can be, as some people are want
from your
to say.
Experiences, though, guys, how much of an appetite for risk do sites have?
Well, generally, it's not worth it, right?
Exactly.
I mean, again, like look at Care Access in these situations. Apparently, they even had the blessing of the sponsor, and they still got blasted, and their business is not the same afterwards.
And look who paid for it in the end. It wasn't Pfizer.
Nope.
Pfizer's going to be fine. Pfizer's going to be okay.
Some of those employees at Care Access, though, they're still struggling, right? We just interviewed someone who did get a job, but not everyone's that fortunate. I mean, this person had experience pre-Care Access. I think that helped a lot. So yeah, sites, shouldn't this have been made more clear for sites if we are to implement it? Like, all this is wishful thinking. Like, all these guys, okay, the tech vendors, they made an alliance, and somebody wrote the guidance for them so that it's easier for them to raise money. They can tell investors, see, FDA says what we're working on is okay, guys. But those investors don't understand that the sites have to say yes, too.
Well, and again, the sponsors have to as well. I don't feel like the sponsors are any more open to the risk than sites are. Maybe I'm wrong. Certainly they want, like we do, better access for patients, and trials to be done quicker and cheaper and faster and all those things. But generally speaking, if you go talk to a sponsor and say, hey, can I do this, they're not like, yeah, go nuts, try something new. But generally not their stance, right?
No sponsor wants to be that guinea pig. Yeah. So, and that's the hard part about innovation, is nobody wants to step up and put their neck on the line for that. They kind of want to sit back and be like, well, this is safe. I know this is what it is, but I wonder what it could happen if we see. And that's the thing, is you were talking about what would encourage a site to do this. It's going to be that those sites who do put the work in to have these logistics in place are going to be first line sites. They're going to be the ones have people coming to them because they're going to have demonstrated enrollment, complete, accurate data, and a lot of it.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
To your point, the other side of the coin is like people like us could actually stand to gain a lot. We're small and lean, and we can be flexible with you. And look, there's guidance. Hey, man, the guidance is here. Says we can do it. And
But it's so unclear though. Like task log, but not training log. So is a task log not a training log? Because what happens when the first instance Alcoac is violated at one of these HCP's office, which might be the very first visit you try. Your monitor, if she's a good monitor, is going to say, hey, well, you need to retrain this person. And then you say, well, we never trained them to begin with. So now you got the issues. Like, I mean, that just doesn't sound right.
I mean, I get what you're saying, and that's where
Yeah.
I think, again, we have to maybe get creative about how we do these things. Maybe it's not that they're recording the source. Maybe they're performing it but not recording it, which I know that's a big part of some people's pitch, and that's, at least I can sort of follow the logic there a little bit better, because at that point, I mean, they're not the ones responsible for generating the source necessarily.
And then Alcoa would remain at the site.
Yeah, and then again, you have a position to be like, look, I mean, we did it, and we're trained, and
complete oversight.
We didn't break any rules. So again, I think it'll come down to just how much sites are willing to push the envelope, and to that, to that extent, how much sponsors are willing to play ball. I mean, look, you've been here too. Sponsors have been like, give us a updated CV, and I can say, no, we don't have to do that. That's not in the guidance. They'll say, oh, okay, and so. There is a little bit of room to play there. So maybe, maybe sites can get away with it.
And that's a good point, Brett. Maybe those successful sites that can do this are the ones that they don't own. It's not only defensibility or they have what they need to defend, but that's the willingness to defend, to push back. And you don't have many sites that do that, saying, no, this isn't how it is. This is how we choose to do it. Our necks are on the line. They're few sites that do that. Some of the sites just roll over and say, yeah, whatever. And maybe those wouldn't be the sites to adopt this. But if you have the gumption, if you have the confidence that you're doing the right thing and you can back it up, I think this could really help your community.
Well, I find it hard to believe. Like, I'm very skeptical on this. Ray from Creo told me that only 20% of sites use any kind of eSource or eReg, not just Creo, any kind.
I believe it. Yeah.
So you get 80% of sites don't even know how to do eSource or you sign things digitally. How the hell are these same sites gonna let some guy they don't know do some assessments that are pretty important for the study and do it over and over and over again? I just don't like baby steps. I think it's wishful. There's smart people that helped push this along, and I can't help but think it was written for investors and not for sites. Like, as a site owner, I have more questions now than before. What is this task log?
Yeah, and again, I think there's guidance that's been out there for a long time that we're still not really doing, right? So just because it's written in guidance doesn't mean it's going to automatically start being adopted. I mean, hell, all of our trials are pretty much everyone coming on site and doing 100% source data verification. How long has risk-based monitoring been a thing?
Yeah.
It's been out there for a while, but we're still not really appear to be doing it at any scale. So, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't even move the needle.
What Tosin just said is spot on. We didn't do eReg for a long time because there was someone who was in that position for 30 years who didn't want to get away from paper. Yeah. And that you're absolutely right. The number one reason for eSource non-adoption is staffing. People just don't want to do it. So.
Yeah. Now imagine the same staff telling them, hey, there's guidance now on
now you're gonna try to do this over across the street at the hospital for a doctor that is not a PI.
Yeah, let's just leapfrog it.
Yeah. Well, maybe, I don't know. But maybe the guidance they wrote now is going to be like adopted in 5-10 years. Never know.
All I know is I got memes ready to go this week, and I'll put them out. I put a safe one out today. we'll see
Yeah.
what's coming next.
I loaded the
Every-
feed with memes too. It must be a meme kind of a week.
Yeah, I think
everyone's
so.
everyone's distracted at DIA. So
DIA, which by the way, we were saying before you got on, sites are the bottom of the totem pole there. If they do go, I've been
I
to
was going to
DIA and
say, are
Bio.
there any? I mean, I don't see any sites posting from there. Maybe I'm sure there are some there, but
It's
it's
actually
mostly
smart
kind
to
of
go if you're a site, smarter to go to that than some of the site ones
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
for
to get
the
the
like
inside.
ROI wise. Yeah,
Mhm.
because you're like I mean, you're bottom of the totem pole, but if you're like one of the only representatives there, so there might be a sponsor or a vendor that actually like wants to see you. But the ROI is like insane. I
Oh
mean,
my gosh. So I know you probably got to leave soon, Dan, but Heather's comment, we got to talk about
Heather,
that
what up,
someday.
Heather? We use eReg and eSource at my site, but the amount of pushback we get from CROs is ridiculous. Yeah. So imagine like telling them, okay, well, forget about that. That's basic. Let's just go into another state. Let's cross state
Mhm.
lines and have this MD or NP do, 5 of these assessments, maybe all of them in some visits,
Mhm.
and then we'll
And
figure out documenting later.
yeah, but Heather, that's another conversation. That's where we got to point at the CTA. CROs have no right in telling you how to do the trial. It's not
Mm,
their necks on the line. It's
mm.
yours. It's your sites. You're the one, your PI, you guys are collecting the data, storing it, putting your reputation on the line. That pushback is irrelevant.
Hmm. Yeah, I
yeah.
thought we should just go live and promote SOS, but
Yeah. Sorry. So SOS.
Come
I
come
think
to SOS for more conversations like this.
everyone come to SOS. We'll be doing more of these live events and the roundtables. So we're really trying to build that agenda. But I think you're onto something, Dan. Having sites come together to talk about how to adapt to this guidance, how to help it to work
yeah,
for
why
them.
didn't sites have someone advocating for them to get guidance for them?
Yeah. Maybe we don't have the deep pockets, right?
Yeah,
Of
lobbying
course
money.
not. Of course not. I talked to one guy, PE guy, that's trying to get into sites, and they're trying to get the sites that are at the 1 million EBITDA first, and trying to
Yeah.
get them to 5 and then exit. But so you're starting to see the PE there. Like once the smart
Mhm.
money comes in, then the lobbyists come also, right? And
Yeah. We call them site flippers. There's site flippers throughout the industry right now.
well,
They're
some of them are IRBs.
Yep. Yep. They've got an exit strategy, build up equity on the site, make it good, have an exit strategy, make a bunch of money. I can't wait to see the TV shows about flip my site,
Flip my
like
site. Hey, but they're
yeah.
IRBs, so they're ethical flippers.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as long as you have ethics behind you.
Yeah. Dan, please tell us about SOS so I can have an early prep. Let's go, Tosin. SaveOurSites.com. Come to the U.S. and do it. It's in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona for the first year. The next year will be in Oklahoma City, I think. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Brad's
that's
down.
the
Yep.
idea.
Yeah.
Brad's down. Is February in
Yep.
Oklahoma City good?
No, it's not. But
We'll do a different month, maybe.
Yeah, have to
yeah,
adjust
we
it.
might maybe we get a little closer to the spring. It's a little
Yeah.
nicer.
Same thing
But
with
February
Illinois.
2024, Tucson, Arizona. It's gonna feel like springtime anywhere else. So come on down, Tosin. You'll love it. We'll give you a tour of the campus and Tucson, which is a pretty cool place if you haven't been.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, guys?
No, just we've got good sponsors, good tickets coming up. Dan, what's the count on the tickets? Do you know?
I don't know. You want me to look live?
Yeah, you look at that
I
real quick.
haven't
And
looked.
in the meantime, Brad, you know who the sponsor is. We're gonna wait on the reveal until we can coordinate it with the sponsor. But
Nice.
really, really excited about the sponsor, and they're really excited about supporting us.
Ooh, 237 tickets sold so far.
237, and the people that I've talked to, the majority of those tickets are sites, not the vendors,
Oh yeah.
not we're talking about every site I talked to. They said, I'm bringing every one of my coordinators. You're going to have likely one of the most concentrated site facing boots on the ground opinions that we've ever seen at a conference.
And guys, we're talking like $150.
Yeah.
There's not a typo like with an extra zero missing, and even that would be cheap compared to some of these things. Like $150 just come. We're not trying to make money off of you. We want you, if you're a site, if you're a coordinator, if you are a site that has coordinated, bring them, bring everyone. I'm trying to figure out how to bring everyone from my site and still do visits at the site. Maybe DCT after all. We can
There
do
you
it from
go.
there. Patients in the office with an MA that's untrained. Hey, we'll figure it out. We'll figure
Dude,
it out.
let's do that. Let's figure out a way that we can
It's like
perform
reverse DCT
visits.
because it's convenient for the staff, not the patient. It's a site-centric DCT.
And Heather, thank you. It looks like we've got supporters here. Heather said she's talking to the sponsors about it. We're still looking for more sponsors to join SOS.
Oh yeah, but we've got
it's-
you guys have been working hard. Thank you guys, you and Monica.
Yeah.
I don't know who else been doing
Oh,
it.
they have just been they've been so wonderful to work with and such a
You
good
guys
team.
been crushing it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and you're right. $150. I mean, I wonder how much it costs to go to DIA.
We can look, and even that's not transparent on the website.
Mhm.
There's different things you got to look through. Well, are you
I
a
think
member? Are you not? This and
we
that.
have to pay $150 just to talk about it. I'm pretty sure. So
Oh, I hope they don't
Expect
send
an-
you a bill just for
expect
mentioning
a
it, Dan.
yeah, expect an invoice.
Expect at best. Okay. Well, anything else, guys? At
Let's
SaveOurSites.com.
plug your sponsors, everyone, and then we'll go from there.
Oh, Versatile. Shout out. These are all these are site centric. So Versatile. Organize your portals, guys. All right. And we're gonna get more portals. Look at this guidance. This guidance is a green light for more portals. So just get that organized. Viva Site Vault, free e-reg, e-signatures. Try to be one of the 20% that does do this because it actually does help. I used to be skeptical of all this stuff. Inato, free studies, free study leads. It's really meant for more experienced sites, but just get on there if you have some experience doing studies. It's free. You got nothing to lose. And then Creo, which is eSource eReg, the only one that's not free, but it's definitely site centric, has CTMS, all kinds of stuff. They will all be at SOS conference also, by the way.
What about you, Brad?
I mean, pretty much same as Dan there. Viva has been huge for us. We're full on with Viva. It's free. It's easy. It's made our lives so much easier. Making sure we keep the correct consent forms up to date and push to all of our coordinators instead of filing things in binders. Which just had a big flood in my office. So having less binders is a good thing. It's just one
Nice.
good example.
Wait, you're telling me it's easier than the IRB portals to navigate?
No, don't get me started on IRB portals. And yeah, Inato, get on Inato. Look, everybody wants more trial opportunities. They're there. They're free. I also think Inato is really cool. It makes you really take a hard look at your own site when you're answering some of these questions and working with their people. It's just going to make you better as a site. So check them out.
For me, I'm a clinically man. They're my people right there. Angel and Henry, really love them. I've got MedVector on my side. I really like what they do. They're going to help the autistic population for community-based research, especially in flyover states, rural areas.
I'm incubating with MedVector. We'll see.
MedVector is a big fan. I'm a big fan, and I'm not going to announce it yet, but I have some really big sponsorship news. I'll tell you guys offline.
Okay.
So.
We'll tie it all into SOS, and who knows? Maybe this is the beginning of advocating for sites, like to the level where we can get guidance pushed for us. Maybe.
Yeah. You mean guidance that actually works?
Yeah, or guidance that's actually clear, like give sites some freedom, because this tech stuff's supposed to empower sites, right? Well, it does, but like Brad said, we're the ones that the sponsor and the FDA holds responsible for how it's implemented. Like ultimately, it's the PI who's in charge, and you don't want to ruin your PI's reputation. That's your site's livelihood right there.
Yeah, that's how you get trials.
So it's no wonder we're risk averse. I mean, we're not the ones sponsoring the studies. We're the ones having to do. We're service providers.
CleanSpark. Has anyone heard of CleanSpark?
I've heard of it. Can't remember what it does. I've heard of all these things. I just don't know what they do. At the end of the day, they kind of all do the same thing.
Yeah.
There's a few unicorns though. We mentioned them.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
There's probably others. Do you get at us, guys? If you're a unicorn, come to Save Our Sites. If you let the world know you're a unicorn.
Yep.
How about that?
Support our sites.
Yeah, be a sponsor.
Yep.
All right. Thank you guys. I gotta go
Thanks,
to the
everyone.
clinic. Actually, gonna go find a HCP in another community and try to get them to work with us, but the old-fashioned way with cars and transportation.
Yeah, and don't forget your dry ice maker. You can make dry ice, Dan.
We gotta talk more about that, man. It looks expensive and it looks like a lot of space.
Not really.
Space is limited right now. I'll talk to you.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk.
Brad, make your own dry ice?
No, we got it easy nearby.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you
All right,
guys.
guys.
Like, subscribe, comment, share. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you guys
Right.
both.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.